Well, hey everybody, this is Robert, and welcome to Outbreak News Interviews. Now, Chagas disease is caused by the protozoan parasite Trypanosoma cruzi. Certain nuisance blood-sucking insects known as kissing bugs spread the parasite to humans when exposure to their feces penetrates the mucous membranes, breaches the skin, or gets orally ingested. Now, researchers from the University of Florida Emerging Pathogens Institute and Texas A&M University gathered their resources to investigate the potential of vector-borne transmission of Chagas in Florida. The 10-year-long study, published in the Public Library of Science, Neglected Tropical Diseases, used data from Florida-based submissions as well as field evidence collected from 23 counties across the state. So joining me today to talk about the study and their findings is Norman Beatty, MD. Dr. Beatty is an assistant professor of medicine at the University of Florida College of Medicine, and he's also a member of the Emerging Pathogens Institute at UF. Dr. Beatty, welcome to the program.
You got it. Thanks for having me, and really excited to talk about our research.
Very good. Excellent. Now, I kind of talked a little bit about Chagas in the intro. I talked about Chagas last week in the interview, and I've talked about Chagas many times, so I don't want to go too much into the parasite itself. But what I would like you to talk a little bit more about is the vector, the kissing bug, and what's its history in our state.
Yeah, that's a great question. How long has this kissing bug been here for? And it's probably been here for many, many years, probably before we were even here as humans. And it has, been sucking blood of many creatures along the way. And as we have populated the state, as we have enjoyed our beautiful beaches and the wonderful weather, these kissing bugs have been here, and they want to invade our homes, and so that's what we did. We wanted to find out, well, are these bugs, are they here, are they invading homes, and do they carry the parasite? Because if they do, we're at risk for Chagas in the state of Florida.
Yeah. So those are some of the questions I'm going to ask you in a moment. But can you talk just in general about the study, the methods, and there was a specific collaboration also?
Yeah, we worked with our close collaborators at Texas A&M, Sarah Hamer and Gabe Hamer, both a fantastic group of scientists over there and researchers who've been tackling Chagas disease in Texas and even have a national program for submissions with community scientists. And so when I transitioned to the University of Florida, my collaboration continued with them, and we developed this program where if anyone from Florida would contact them because they had a national program, they would send them my way. And then as my program was building and more awareness was happening in Florida, a lot of the Floridians were just reaching out to us directly. And so it was really a mixed method study where we utilized community scientists who would submit bugs to us or bring them right to campus. It was kind of interesting to see someone pull up to the hospital and hand a bug to me in a bag. And I was like, oh, thank you for your submission. And I had a kissing bug in my hand. And so, it really worked kind of in that way at times. But also, we were able to go to sites and go to homes and find these bugs. And, I'll never forget, like the first night we were out, and we had someone had submitted a bug, and we were given permission to go and look for some insects. And when we found our first Florida kissing bug, it was right there on the screen, and I just knew it. I just knew they were here, and quite frankly, we're collecting right now, and it's not hard to find them. They really are quite prevalent in our state.
All right. So basically, in your study, there were 4 key questions that you wanted to answer. So let's go over them one by one and see what you came up with, okay? Where are the kissing bugs?
Yeah, the kissing bugs that we have in Florida are really found at the interface between kind of the wild spaces of Florida and the human dwellings. And so we have, different cities and towns where we are abutting kind of the wild Florida. And these insects are found right there. We call this peridomestic regions. Um, and we've even found some that have invaded homes to the point where they may be infested with the insect. But for the most part, most insects are found at those intersections between the wild spaces and our human developments.
Was there any particular counties that were more heavily infested than others?
Well, right now we're here in Gainesville at the main campus. We're in Alachua County. A
Yeah.
lot of our work focused in North and Central Florida, but that also aligns with some of the historical data that has been done already in Florida for these insects back in the 1940s and 50s. There were some really fantastic entomologists trekking the swamps of Florida looking for kissing bugs. I just can only imagine doing
Serious stuff.
that at that time period. And so it all, what we have found, it aligns with what they have found. So it's really the insects that we have in Florida, which are a bit unique for Florida. I will add that they are found in the Panhandle, North and Central Florida regions, and they dip down close to Lake Okeechobee. In that central, south central. But in our study, we did go to some locations in South Florida, and we did not find any vectors down there. So we didn't spend as much time in those regions, but we did not find them. So we really, at this point, do not know whether or not they truly are in, let's say, Dade County or Monroe County, Lee County. But the research still needs to be done.
Yeah. Um, by the way, what is it? Just one genus and species of kissing bug, or is there multiple we're dealing with here?
Yeah, right now we are aware of one predominant species,
Mm.
and I will release some information which is really interesting. We actually are getting ready to describe a new species in Florida
Oh,
of kissing bug. We feel pretty confident in that. So this is preliminary data, but these insects are so unique that they do not align with some of the other species that we have in North America. So we may have ourselves our own Florida kissing bug. And then there's another species that is really not, we have not found. It's found in the wild spaces, and it has not been entering homes. And so we really have one, maybe two dominant species. Currently, the known species is called Trypanosoma sanguisuga. But we have found, again, we may have our own species. We are working on that right now.
well, that'd be pretty cool. I'll be looking out for the next triatomin with the name Beatty in it, right?
Well, we don't name insects after people anymore, but it may have Florida in it. Let's
All
just
right.
say
All
that.
right. The second question was our kiss. You kind of already alluded to this. Are kissing bugs in our homes?
Kissing bugs are in our homes. We are finding them invading homes. Most of the people who reached out to me and still do, even last week, someone from the Cape Canaveral area had some insects in their home, found them in their bed, and they were biting them. So
Yeah.
they are invading homes. These insects are bloodsuckers. They are looking for a blood meal, and our homes are full of warm blooded creatures, including the human. And when they can get in, they will get in and they will take a blood meal. They're very sneaky. They don't want to allow you to know they're there. And they are most active at nighttime. And so when they can get in, it's typically around dawn and dusk. And they're very active up until about 10 or 11 p.m. And they are in search of that blood meal. And at that time, a lot of people are sleeping, and
Yeah,
that's when we find folks waking up with a bug on them. They feel it, and it's really creepy stuff. I mean,
I'm
the
sure.
stories that I get to hear are quite amazing. But also, we've got to think about this. We've got a vector, we've got a parasite. It's biting people. It's invading homes. We need to do more research. And so, my hope with this project, it really, several years of work, multidisciplinary approach. Um, we've got it just opens the door now that we've got a vector-borne disease that we're not addressing in our state.
So you're saying we're going to turn into another Texas? Is that what you're saying?
I would tell you that we have all the necessary elements for transmission
Yeah.
of Chagas in our state, including a vector that is more than willing to invade our home. So, all insects have unique behaviors, and some of them are more or less willing to adapt, to evolve, and to find a way to persist around human beings and all the things that we do. And this insect seems to be doing well, and it seems to be finding a way into our homes, as well as people are just unaware of them. Most of the time somebody reaches out and they're like, "What is this? It was biting me and it's full of blood." And I'm like, "And that's a kissing bug. Let's talk more about it."
Yeah, it's interesting too that they're actually coming into solid homes in Florida. When I always think about thatched roof homes in Brazil, right? And that you see the kissing bugs, but they find a way no matter what, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the dogma of Chagas, right? I mean, we've been studying this disease since 1909, since Carlos Chagas himself discovered this parasite, and there are some, tritamines or kissing bugs that are really associated with those types of human dwellings. I mean, that it still holds true, and that we can still go to the Gran Chaco and in Argentina and find those same scenarios. But what we're really seeing now is, these insects are likely adapting, they're likely evolving, and they are likely, able to get in certain structures or certain situations
Mhm.
in a human structure. I mean, and the other thing I'll mention is, we still have housing that we would liken to some of these scenarios in our state. We do have people, living in scenarios where, they have extreme poverty, or they have, a humble home and that they enjoy living in the woods, in a very rural setting, and that's kind of what they enjoy. But insects are going to do what they do, and we just got to recognize this vector is here, and I'm glad that we can talk about it today.
Yeah, I'm wondering, do any of the people that brought the kissing bugs in, do they confuse it for cockroaches?
They do. It's
There's
but
some.
it's a very hardy insect. I have this really famous slide that I put in all my presentations of a person who went to grab their sandal and they thought it was a cockroach and they hit it, and they pulled up the shoe, and the kissing bug's on the bottom of the shoe, alive, like looking up at the human with its antennas, like who do you think you are? Like, you can't kill me. And so they really their exoskeleton is really tough.
Yeah, I
You
guess so.
just you to kill that thing, you've got to like really crunch down on it. So people do confuse them with cockroaches, but I think with the more awareness, we're finding more folks are just noticing this is an insect that shouldn't be in my home, and why is it close to my bed, or why is it biting me?
Yeah. The third thing you guys were trying to explore was, what are the kissing bugs eating? What do we know?
Yeah, this is really fantastic work done by my collaborator at the Florida Medical Entomology Laboratory in Vero Beach, Nathan Burkett Gadina, and Denise Sten. They are kind of the folks who did this research, and it is pretty fascinating what our bugs are feeding on. One, they're feeding on humans. There was about 25% of the blood meals were human, but they also have a strong connection to the opossum,
Mhm.
which we have in Florida, very common kind of mesomammal that lives in and around human dwellings. And it also correlates with some of the other research we've done showing that the T. cruzi parasite is highly prevalent in our opossums in Florida. But more interesting was, we were able to show that they're feeding on certain frogs and certain lizards,
Hmm.
which we don't see in other tratamines or kissing bugs in North America. And that just shows that this species, and the one that we have here in Florida, is kind of adapted to this ecosystem. Um, and we'll get a blood meal when it can. And one other last of important feature was finding that some of the nymphal stages, or kind of the baby kissing bugs, were feeding on cockroaches. And so, a blood-sucking insect, what we call hematophagus, they suck warm blood. They need iron. They need red blood cells. Well, insects have hemolymph, which is not iron rich, which is a different fluid composition. But we definitely found that they had fed on some cockroaches because that DNA was present in their guts, and so that just it shows the complexity of the insect's biology, and being able to persist in the environments. Especially maybe during times of starvation, they will be able to utilize that feed off a cockroach just temporarily until they can get their next blood meal from a warm-blooded creature.
Oh, that's
But
very interesting.
we have found outside of the United States that several lizards have harbored T. cruzi. And so it actually opens the door to just thinking about the whole disease model itself. Would T. cruzi be in a lizard, or would it be in a frog?
These little geckos running around Florida, right?
Yeah. That's we just don't know the answers to that right now. So it's kind of interesting work.
I didn't realize they were so indiscriminate about it. Now, I guess the key question you had to answer was, do these kissing bugs carry the parasite, T. cruzi? And clearly the answer is yes.
They do carry the parasite, and for a vector itself, pretty high prevalence of the parasite. So we calculate about 29% of our bugs had the parasite, and this is purely just through molecular detection. And we found it correlates with two different strains that we know exist in North America. One of them being, the one strain that we know can cause pathology in humans and cause Chagas disease in humans. And some other interesting findings about the parasite itself was that some of the strains were untypable. We just, through our molecular work, we were unable to give it a type. And so there are 6 strains, DTUs, we call them, discrete typing units, for the parasite. And through those methods, in multiple rounds of retesting, some of the strains just didn't align with what we know with these 6 DTUs. So we're actively looking into that. Is there possibly a unique Florida strain here?
Exactly.
Would it be more pathogenic, or would it be able to infect certain hosts? There's really so much research to be done, but I think it just opens up again the floodgates about a vector-borne disease. It's here in our state and has the capability of infecting humans.
All right. So based on the answers to those 4 questions, your conclusion is yes, right? Chagas is a real possibility for local transmission here in the state.
I would agree with that. I think based off of what we have been able to show in the study, we have the presence of the vector. It's associated with human dwellings. It has the parasite within it, and it's actively out in search of humans to feed on them. And so we have all the necessary pieces of this puzzle to show that it's possible. I don't know if it's happening, and I'm actively researching that as we speak. We are testing humans, and this will take several years, but we will know the answer to this here in the near future.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if public health authorities start taking a closer look at this, and I guess you got to start seeing them pop up in some humans first, but.
Yeah, that's a great point. Which in our state, the state of Florida, there is diseases that are reportable to our public health authorities, and unfortunately, Chagas disease is not reportable, and it's largely not reportable throughout the United States, which is really, I think, in my mind, a bit insane. We have tritamines infected throughout most of the United States, 30 states to be exact.
Yeah.
And very little states have recognized the need to monitor this. And so there's a lot to be done, but this purely is a neglected tropical disease throughout the world and here in the United States.
All right, Dr. Beatty. So you kind of alluded to this already too. What's next? What's next on your plate for this parasite?
Yeah, we're growing the parasites. We have Florida tea cruzi growing in the lab. We are studying its mechanics of transmission. We are looking at what hosts it may be able to infect, and it's growing well. And it's definitely something that we need to take seriously. So we're in the lab with the parasite right now, and we're setting up some animal models to look at how infectious this parasite is, and it is very similar to the other pathogenic strains that we have. So there's really nothing different with our parasite. We just have never looked. We have never done the research, and likely in the near future we'll be talking about human cases. But
Yeah.
at this time, we just need to do the research.
Yeah, some good work you guys are doing for sure. Let me tell the audience that. Oh, let me get back up there. The study is titled "Field Evidence of Trypanosoma cruzi Infection, Diverse Host Use and Invasion of Human Dwellings by the Chagas Disease Vector in Florida, USA." It is published in the journal PLOS Neglected Tropical Diseases, and I'll link to it in the show notes if you want to take a look at it. It's interesting stuff, and I'll even link to the press release if it might be a little easier read for some. And I want to thank you, Dr. Norman Beatty, for sharing your research with us today. It was really interesting stuff.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, and I'm glad that we could talk today and talk about our research on Chagas disease. Have a wonderful day.
Yes, you too.